Welcome. We're thrilled to be with you again this Friday and to welcome the Actors Gang Prison Project, represented by Jeremie Loncka, Dich, Rich Loya, Major Bunton, and we also have with us James Campbell from Avenal State Prison in California as well. Without further ado, I'm just going to hand this over to Jeremie. But please know, like, if you have questions, please just filter them in through the chat. At any time they come to you, they may influence the direction the conversation's going in real time. But otherwise, we like to call people into space and to just make it as dialogic as possible. So, Jeremie, take it away.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It's awesome to see all your faces. Chris, I love that mug you're drinking out of. A little endorsement right there. Rich is actually going to really be orchestrating and kind of pushing things forward today. So Rich, as you might have picked up if you watched the panel from a week or so ago, is one of our lead teaching artists. And yeah, we're happy to have him leading the way today. You want to take it away, man?
Yeah. All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you're watching us from, but it is such an honor to have been given this opportunity to kind of lead this thing today, lead this conversation, our Q&A. I don't know if you all had a chance to watch this video, the panel, the conversation we had with staff, administration from Avenal. We'll get more into that, but I just thank you. And I want to say really from the bottom of my heart, I'm just so glad that I get to see beautiful faces even though it's in a laptop, it's on a screen. I don't have to see the mask or these face shields that we have so been accustomed to seeing, right? Inside, I saw beautiful faces, but we always, and maybe Major Johnny will also can touch on that. It was always bitter faces. It was always angry faces. It was always just, and so just being in this platform with y'all and sharing this space means so much to me. And yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm excited to get this conversation going, right? Mainly, we're here to talk about our alumni network, what that has meant, our journey through it all, and what led us to where we are now with it. I went in, for those of you that didn't watch the video, I spent 30 years in prison. I went in when I was 16 years old. I came home when I was 46 in 2017. And so if you can imagine what my life became, I totally disconnected from all humanity, emotionally. And so having had the arts come into our prison, to our facility, into my life, it is the reason why I'm here today, right? Totally changed my life. And I can speak about what it did to other men in the group also. So before we begin, can I invite everyone, and this is the way we start our classes. We always take a deep breath together, right? And Scott, this is what I'm stealing this from you. In our line of work, from other teaching artists, we steal stuff. I hate to admit that I just picked that up recently because in prison we cannot steal, right? But now I'm in the stealing business. And one of Scott's word that touched me the other day was in having connection, we need community, right? We need community. So let's all, to unify, I invite you to if you can close your eyes for a few seconds, and we're all gonna take one deep, unified breath together. And let it go. You may open your eyes. Thank you. Okay, as mentioned, my name is Richard Loya. I am the Actors Gang Prison Project alumni. What does that mean? I just shared. I was formerly incarcerated. Me personally, I don't like to use returned citizen when described as introduced to someone or anybody. Only because then I have to explain where I'm returning from. That's just me. I'm formerly incarcerated. I'm gonna speak. I don't have no shame of where I come from, my past. one thing I have learned since I made these changes in my life, it's got me to the point where I am in my life because just being honest and not hiding the fact where I was has surprisingly opened these doors that I never imagined. And so that's just my personal feeling about it. You guys can call me whatever you want, all right? Return citizen, whatever, I'll take it. But thank you so much for being here. Before we begin, yes, Scott, Kurt, Melinda, you were part of this process in the beginning. Thank you so much for inviting us to joining you in such a platform, right? With us, we have staff from Avenal. I have not met him personally, but he's a great lieutenant that is there now. And maybe you could just introduce yourself, Lieutenant Campbell, real quick, just so they can hear that you're there.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is James Campbell. I'm lieutenant here, assigned as the AAPIO. I took Mike Kentuckett's spot when he promoted. It's been roughly 3 months now. So welcome, everyone. And I'm fortunate to be with you guys today.
Awesome. Thank you. And let it be noted, right? I want y'all guys to know something. I haven't heard of it. And I know when I was inside, it was unheard of. So the fact that staff have willingly decided to meet with us in a panel, to have a conversation out here, it's unheard of. So that speaks volumes about where they're at as a leadership, as an administration, and this is Avenal State Prison. Am I giving a shout out to Avenal? Heck yeah, I'm giving out a shout out to Avenal State Prison because they're the ones that gave us these opportunities, specifically allowing the Actors Gang Prison Project to come onto the yard, to our facility, and it affected so many lives in so many ways. We'll get into that more as we move on. Next, I want to introduce to y'all two friends, two brothers, two colleagues of mine who I met at this prison, and they're also out here now with me, continuing to do the work. So if Major, you'd like to introduce yourself real quick and tell us a little bit about you?
Yes, thank you. I want to say again, this platform that we have put together is something that needs to be spread across different state lines. I think it helps us trying to figure out how to work with people who have been incarcerated. How do we make the transition so they can come out and be better people? They can live a life that is much easier for them to balance. But programs like this here will allow them to see that it's possible. So my name is Major, and I was incarcerated for 29 years. And I went in when I was 21 years of age. I was very young, naive. I was involved in gang lifestyle. I was involved in everything that I shouldn't have been involved. And it took me probably about 22 years to really start to find some type of balance about self-discovery. And as time went on, these programs started to show up. And this particular one program was the Actors Gang in 2016, showed up and was asking me to wear some makeup, play, have fun. And as a person who's done time in prison, to put makeup on, I was like, whoa, it's a little too much. You're asking for a little too much. But they were so generous about trying to get us to see ourselves in a different light. They want us to see something past the belief system that we all had practiced for so long. And when we were able to kind of establish a relationship with them, we started to learn the fundamentals about self-discovery, the four basic emotions, which is sad, happy, fear, and anger, which is something in prison is not allowed. The only emotion is allowed is anger. So I had desensitized myself from all three of those emotions. Fear was never something that I used. Sad was something I never used. And happy was definitely something I never used. And so this program allowed me to start to engage in these emotions properly. And as I started to go through the process, I started to engage with these new feelings of life. And in 2018, I was granted parole and I was able to go home as a free man. And I connected with the Actors Gang the moment that I came home, and they took me aboard. And I couldn't tell you the journey that I have taken since I've been with the Actors Gang, because I've been gone from from society for so long. You know, technology, that was my biggest fear. Nothing else, just technology, credit cards, like bank cards, whatever that is, right? Because I had no knowledge of what that was. When I went in, they had no phones, they had nothing. So they, at the Actors Gang, you know, a lot of the staff members, they would come in, show me how to set up everything. And I wasn't embarrassed to go to talk to them because they already made me feel like family already from day one. And so because they made me feel like family, there wasn't no hesitation about just knocking on the door saying, hey, I don't know how to swipe this card. How do I upload this? How do I activate this card? So they did all those things for me. And I'm so grateful for the Actors Gang for even taking the time to show me these things that are very new to a lot of us. I built a relationship with them, the Actors Gang, which is a program that we have in Culver City. And then we have the Actors Gang Prison Project, which is me, John, and some other guys who are participating in the program. So with that, I just want to continue on with this work. Scott and all the rest of you guys who have put this platform together, I want you to know that this work you're doing is something that is so important for all of us and everyone that's in this picture today. So thank you for allowing me to share this moment.
Yeah, great, Major. Thank you. John Dich, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I know you see me and you don't think I've ever been in prison, right? Because I get that a lot. And it's crazy because I still get it till this day when I speak about my past. But you know, at the last panel, I spoke about how Avenal was my saving grace. I started my time off at Pelican Bay where there was no light, there was no hope whatsoever. And you were sent there with the mindset that you're going to die there. And so that was my whole mindset for the last 10 years. I was down, but once I finally made my way down and got my way down to Avenal, I started my change there. And when I started that change, I didn't really know where to begin because everything was so textbook, and I'm the type of guy that's a more visual learner. So 2016 come around, they brought in the Actors Gang Prison Project. Rich was one of the guys that kind of made me attend, even though I didn't want to because I thought it was the weirdest thing ever. But he said I was a weirdo and that it would be perfect for me. So I gave it a try. Didn't like it at first because of the whole makeup thing, but when I did give it a try, I realized how impactful it was, how life-changing it was, because then I realized that the whole time I was in prison, or the whole time I was living previously before prison, I was wearing a mask. Being a part of the Actors Gang, I knew that I could always take off that mask and become my true self again, to allow myself to become the person I truly was meant to be. So I'm extremely thankful for that. I was in prison for like 15 years. I went in when I was 18, came out 34. So this program was so impactful that eventually I became full-time staff 2020, and I am now the alumni advocacy coordinator, where I am the point person for the guys that and women that do get out of prison and wants to continue with the program. And I just plug them in with the network and just help them along the way. And earlier, Major talked about how the Actors Gang Prison Project is like a family. When I first got out, I didn't have a ride anywhere, even to the theater to continue the work. Major lived so far away, I want to say about an hour away. He would come out of his way, pick me up, took me to the theater. And that shows how much this program is impactful because it's a family dynamic. We get out, we build that bond, and we continue that bond. So I'm so thankful for that, thankful for Avenal, because it changed my life for the good. And look at me now. So with that, I want to thank everyone for being here and allowing me this opportunity to speak.
Great. Thank you, Johnny. But I have to say, Johnny, I'm still on parole. You can't be saying that I made you do anything. I encouraged you. All right?
You encouraged me.
Come on, man. Yeah. All right. Great. All right. If you saw the video, if you saw our conversation, uh, in there I shared about how this started for us, how this program came to be, and how it was introduced to us, right? So my boss at the time, I worked in the program office on the facility. And so I was a clerk to Lieutenant Crenshaw. And one day he just calls me into the office and says, hey, this new program is coming in. But understand, like I shared, we had been locked down for years. 4.5 years we were locked down on this yard. And when the program was finally opened, here came this program, the Actors Gang, and we didn't know nothing about it. In fact, my boss had no idea. He just knew. This is how he says to me. He calls me in the office and he says, hey, here, take this paperwork. New program is starting. I want you to get it started. I'm like, okay, what is it? Who is it? What is it about? I don't know. It's Tim Robbins and some actors. That's all he says to me. It's Tim Robbins and some actors. I'm like, okay, I recognize the name, but what is it about? What? And he says, well, I don't know. Some actors are coming with him. Get this group together. Well, I ended up gathering a group of men that he wanted me to mix it up and bring in the bad seeds of the facility, the F ups. And so, sorry, Major Johnny, I brought him on. I brought him along, and we finally get into a room, get into the gym, and we're waiting. We're full of anticipation. We're excited to see Tim come in and these actors. Who is it going to be? And here comes 3 white people. Sorry, I mean no offense this when I say that. 3 white people and an English woman. Her name was Sabra Williams. She's a co-founder of the program. And these 3 white people, all 4 were dressed in white. We're dressed in black. And they walk in and they're like, that's the gang. That's the Actors Gang. And we're like, what the? Because the word gang, right? I'm expecting like some official, bona fide gang affiliation type of people coming in. And so here is these white people, and they're here to teach us theater. So of course we all looked at each other and we're like, what is this? And so anyways, I say that he introduced himself already, but Jeremie Loncka, our director of program, was one of those white people that walked in that day. And I cannot tell you how much that week that they came in and spent with us. Because normally when you have program, it's once a week, it's twice a month. So we'll see the free staff or whoever's running that program only on those days, once a week, twice a month, whatever. And they came for 7 days straight. They came from 9 to 1 p.m., Monday through Sunday, 7 days straight. So there was a lot of time spent between them and us. And so I think that showed, and these people are coming here every day to teach us something, to show us something, to teach us something different. And that was the beauty of that class, is that, like you heard Johnny and Major mention, there was makeup involved. There was makeup involved, lipstick, real makeup. And now we're putting it on. Like, I believe by the 3rd, 4th day, we're putting on this makeup. And the setup was, we were in the gym, so there's windows. So anytime guys from the yard were looking, they'll look in the windows. And we didn't care. We didn't care because things started happening in the 3rd, 4th day, where now we had that community, right? We had that connection with each other in a way that we didn't at all. Like, I knew Major on the yard, but I didn't have a conversation with him. Johnny I did because he was my neighbor, but the other 22 men that were there, half of them, I didn't even know their names. I only knew them by their nicknames or their prison names until the Actors Gang came in. So Jeremie, I want to ask you, you've been with us 4 years now. We've known you for 4 years. And what that process was like for you, and what it means to you now that so many of Avenal, because of those 25, ladies and gentlemen, 21 of us are home now. 21 of that 25 are home now, and we're all doing great work with the community. We're being responsible. We're law-abiding. We're holding jobs, paying our taxes, doing what we're supposed to, as normal, regular people do, right? So it's meant so much to me. So Jeremie, if you want to just talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the Q&A part.
That's a big question, man. It means so much to me. I hear a little feedback. Is that me? Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. Obviously, for those of you who don't know and work with us on the regular, like, it started just like Rich is talking about, but what it's actually turned into is these guys that are on the call with me are just incredible friends, and our wives know each other, and like it just goes so deep. And it all started with Rich just showing up to the theater. And I think one of the things that we can talk a little bit about today that I think is coming up in other Q&As for us as an organization is just what's happening in COVID, in the pandemic times. And on a personal note, it's been a really challenging time, as it has been for so many people. But we've started as an organization certain talking circles, and the idea was to start them with the idea that it's like, all right, in order for us to support teaching artists as they're coming back and reacclimating into their communities, we need to have these circles that can provide therapeutic tools for them to continue the work. The whole thing has worked the absolute opposite way. Like this time of the pandemic, I show up and I work with these guys, and they've had to recreate what it is to do the Actors Gang style in Zoom with these little boxes, and they've totally done it. They're actually ahead of where the theater is at in so many ways. So first off, it's super inspiring just to see the work you guys are all creating. And then on a personal note, like I just lean into all of you so hard, as you guys all know, but like for people who are watching, it's like, you guys have such a skill set, which hopefully you'll speak to a little bit later, of what it is to survive in these very difficult times where we're locked down and we're in quarantine. And, to get the opportunity to work with you guys on a very personal way, week to week, and share that with you is what has gotten me through this difficult time in particular, outside of all the pride I have about like the numbers and all of that like look great and allow us to fund the programming on a deep personal level, just to get to spend time with such incredible humans and call you guys friends and do all of the stuff outside of the actual acting portion of it is what I love most and what has meant the most to me, and especially during this time.
Great, thanks. I see questions are coming in. I see Alicia, to the alumni. When was the exact moment you knew that this program had changed your life? Or was it gradual change? Maybe Johnny and Major, you want to speak on that? But before we do, can Lieutenant Campbell, if you don't mind me asking, if you're totally comfortable with just sharing a little bit about what's been going on over there during these COVID times, just kind of give us an update. If the guys are able to meet or are they receiving the work we're sending? Just if you can update us a little bit, Lieutenant Campbell, on what's going on over there.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is the second time I've been able to join you guys in this format. I apologize, I don't have a camera this time. We're doing, the state's moving towards visiting via video. So we're setting up our visiting rooms with video conferencing capabilities and hoping to open that up later in the month. So one big change, as most of you know, is that our warden, Rosemary Ndoh, has moved up to Sacramento. She's an associate director acting right now over female operations, and taking what she has fostered here at Avenal up to Sacramento to try to get the programs that we have going on here to other institutions. So huge opportunity for her and for the rest of the state to get her experience and her passion for the programs here at Avenal to other institutions. Coming behind her is a former chief deputy warden from Corcoran State Prison, where I came from also, is our new acting warden. His name is Martin Gamboa, and today will make his 5th day here at Avenal. Very positive person, very positive program mentality, very positive staff mentality. And really, we're just still waiting to see where COVID takes us. As most of you know, California is going back into very tight restrictions again, and all that trickles into the prison system as well. Like I said, with the capability of doing the video visiting, it's huge. It starts getting that family connection, face-to-face connection again, where the family can be at home and the incarcerated person here, and they can see each other again. And so we're really hoping that takes shape and takes off and works well. Where we are COVID related, I've been getting out more. Our new warden's big mission has been getting out and touring the institution and meeting people, and so we're starting to get out and talk to the groups again. The groups are still kind of cohorted by building, if you will. So if you have, let's say a youth offender program group that's in housing unit 230. Well, unfortunately, right now they're still not able to get out with the fellow group in 210, just because of our COVID restrictions. So they're meeting with their own persons inside the building, and we're just waiting for really clearance to start merging the groups together again. I hope that answered that question. We're as far as paperwork coming in, it is. I mean, we're still collecting. See, I'm all over the place right now. So let's talk a group at a time. So, for example, the skateboard project. They're still painting the skateboards. We're collecting them up. We just went out to Echo Yard the other day and collected up some skateboards, took pictures, and we're going to be taking those probably in the next, I'd say, month to the organization that auctions those off for charity. High school diploma, going to be meeting with them probably next week with the individuals that have gotten their high school diploma and doing some talking with them. So programs are still moving. They're just moving kind of at a slower pace. And that kind of, if there's specific questions, I'm more than happy to talk more about it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lieutenant. For the questions, why don't we do this? Because we talked about community, right? And I'll read the first 2 or 3 that are on, and then after, feel free to just on screen, just ask your question. Maybe raise your hand, I'll catch you. If I don't, I have Scott and Jeremie eyes helping me, and we can pick you out. So why don't we do that? And the first question I have was, I read it already, and looks like Major, you want to answer that question?
Sure, thank you, appreciate it. The first question is, outside of the workshop you were participating in at Avenal, did you see an impact on the culture outside of the workshop? That was the question. And I would say absolutely, off the top. We started to recognize, because the culture is so different inside, we have these different ways of how people live on the yard, from different races, from Hispanics to Blacks to Asians to you name it, right? Everyone has their own community, and we kind of do our own thing. And sometimes in certain communities, you're not allowed to engage in certain things based on the politics or the rules of the nature of what you're standing in. But for some reason, at this time, the ship was changing about people going home. Lifers were starting to go home. So we started to take a little bit of faith, a little bit of hope, a little bit of willingness to take a step outside of ourselves. And we started questioning that circle. So that community that I lived in, I started to question, like, you know, is this really for me? So I decided to step outside of that. And I started to take the challenges on that I was nervous about. And so once I did, I started to feel better about myself, and I started to see other guys who were taking the same challenges as well. So, you know, John, Richard, we all were all up on certain structures. And so we just made this commitment, and there's so many programs inside, right? And this particular program is so different than all the rest of the programs that I took. I'm telling you, if I say I took programs, I took everything they had. Domestic violence, NA, AA, criminal thinking, gang anonymous, like you name it, I took it, right? And when I say I took it, I took the full commitment. But this class had it had a different structure. It wasn't a chalkboard saying, hey, look what we got here, and fix this about yourself. It was more about this physical activity. It was more about this internal look through these games that we played. It was about discovering through character about why I feel this way and why I can let that go. It was just so many different dynamics that allowed me to say, wow, this is totally different. And because it was so interesting, and because the way they have sculptured this particular program for a person that been in so many programs, I was like, wow, this is just crazy. And so when they called the program the next day, I was like ready to go, get into class, and they pulled the makeup out, and I got involved, and it was just a journey that I couldn't tell you that I took initiative to, and it changed my life completely, because I felt that my inner the internal struggles that I had, I started to challenge those things, and the program allowed me to challenge those things in a more positive way. And I can tell you now, when I went to the board to get out of prison, the first time I went, I was so afraid to talk about what I did, the crime that I committed, the things that I did when I was young, all my causative factors that brought me to prison, all the things that contributed to my behavior. I was too afraid to talk about those things. The Actors Gang and these characters kind of showed me how to let that stuff go, be honest with these people that want to know my story. And so when I went in there, I just spoke from the heart, from a place that was sincere, and they saw that within hours. And the program allowed me to see that that I was a better person once I took that program. So yeah, I would say that the culture changed a lot, because right now I'm friends with everybody on this, every alumni that I stand with today. Richard, John, you know, I show up at their house, eat dinner with them. Like, that is not allowed inside. We're not allowed to eat with them. You know, we're not allowed to hang out with them in a structure. That is not cool. You can get hurt for that. You know, if they see that, they can actually do something to you. But we felt that it was so important. Like, listen, you know what? Our freedom is so more important than this circle or community that we live in. And I said, the hell with that. Like, I want my freedom. And so I did that. And so this is where I'm at. And I'm thankful for the Actors Gang for allowing me to really have a better chance about fixing myself and working on myself in a more human and humble way. So thank you.
Great. I want to go back to Alicia, because and John, I don't know if you want to.
I'll speak to it. So for me, when I first took the program, like I said in the beginning, I didn't really like it at first. But then once I started to understand what the curriculum was about, that's when I started to have an understanding of it and actually apply it to my life. Once I was able to do that, like the whole makeup thing, that's when I knew that this is what I needed. I needed vulnerability, because I was so closed off growing up, and I never talked about anything. I was just like a wall. But during this program, you're forced to, you're encouraged to put down those shields, to begin to do the work, and just trust the process, start being vulnerable. And that's exactly what I did. You know, during my time at Avenal, that's when my change started, but it didn't fully take into effect once this program went into effect. That's when it fully changed for me, is when I was able to shed a tear for the very first time in this group. Growing up, I was taught, you know, keep everything bottled up. You're a man, you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to show any type of emotion. So being in this group and trusting the process and becoming vulnerable, that's when I started shedding my tears and starting to have an understanding of my emotions. And so it goes to say a little bit of what Major was talking about as well. When I went to the board, I went for the first time after 15 years, and I got found suitable on the first time. Because of this program, I was able to share my experiences with them, become open and vulnerable, and just being able to speak about it and not be ashamed of my past, because at the end of the day, it's just my past, and I can't let that define the person I am today.
Yep, that's right. Kate Kenny, so I see, curious about exactly the work and the participant after 7 weeks and the production. Okay, so yes, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear about what the work is. So after that 7-day intensive, when they come and introduce the style to us, they don't come back and check in, meaning the teaching artists. They don't come back till 7 weeks later. So that's where the work implies, like, it is so vital. What's going to happen that first week after they leave? Now we have to figure out how are we going to continue meeting every week and trying to figure out what this style is, this Commedia dell'arte, right? And it's 14 characters that we get to play in the style, and it's always dealing with you've been hearing it, the 4 emotions, right? So it's scientifically proven: happy, angry, sad, and afraid. When they're at the highest peak, each one at the highest level of the feeling, not one is more than the other. And so learning to show the emotion, like Johnny just talked about, we're not allowed to really show emotions like that in there, but we created this space enough, this space enough where it allowed us to be vulnerable. It allowed us to tap into these emotions. And so figuring out what we're going to do until they come back in 7 weeks, those are the journeys, right? And it wasn't always easy. It wasn't, because you had 25 alpha dogs in this group, and we have to figure out, they come and teach us there's no leaders and no followers. You guys are your own leaders. You guys have to work together. You guys will figure it out. And of course, we all challenged each other. We all came with different ideas, different suggestions, but it wasn't always, an easy meeting. But those are those moments that made us look at each other like people. Like, okay, one thing we learned through this work is saying yes and to each other. Okay, I may not agree that this is going to work, but I'm going to support it. Yes and let's try it. Let's do it. And so figuring that out, that's the work. So I hope that answers your question some. And we're going to move down another one. Let's see. What do you think your program needs in order to provide participants to be able to make time for theater on the outside?
I think for me, it's just mainly support and just having the time to do so, because a lot of times we either work or have something besides theater. So ultimately, it's just a willingness to be able to set some time aside yourself and how bad you want to do it. If you want to continue the work, you're going to definitely continue. But one thing about the Actors Gang is they're extremely supportive in what you do. And so for me, it was the support. Once I seen how supportive they were, like, even there were times where I couldn't make it for training. They're like, don't worry about it, show up next time. And so I felt that support. And that's what made me keep coming back.
So I see Ms. Lovett, you jumped on with us. Dee Lovett is the resource manager there at Avenal. So she was there with us throughout the whole process, right? And so, Ms. Lovett, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm here. I
Okay,
can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, hi, Ms. Lovett.
Hi.
I'm going to throw this one at you, Ms. Lovett, because you were there and you get the reports, you get to hear from staff. The question is from Chris Naftel to the alumni outside of the workshops. You were participating at Avenal. Did you see an impact on the culture outside of the workshops?
So I will definitely say yes. beginning program in CDCR, the rehabilitative piece, was something new that hadn't been done before in the prison system. So when programs began to come on board, of course, staff were very reluctant. They did not believe that rehabilitation was possible. And with staff feeling that, I also truly believe that some inmates felt that as well. They didn't think that they were worthy because that hadn't been poured into them. So having programs available to the men, and then them actually, as you all have expressed in your own words, being able to show vulnerability, being able to show change, being able to interact with one another, being able to let your guard down and let your true inner self come out, actually began to resonate amongst the groups. And once it happened amongst the groups, it began to resonate with staff. Once staff seen that these programs really are working, these programs really are changing these individuals, helping them become a better version of themselves, preparing them to re-enter into society, staff truly bought into the rehabilitation in CDCR. And with that, they became so involved that they came to support the programs. They couldn't wait to see the next production. They couldn't wait to hear what the men were doing. They began to check up on them. They began to look at them in a different light, that they were more so humans and not just inmates. And that's one of the things that we really wanted to do across the board, is to allow people to see people as people and not for the crimes that they committed. We as staff are not at Avenal to punish inmates or judge them, because we as staff, some of us, I'll speak for me, could have been them, by the grace of God, I wasn't. But however, the culture totally shifted. Staff bought in, inmates bought in, and it made it more cohesive and more enjoyable to offer programs, to see the rewards in the faces, to see the rewards in staff and family and in the inmate participants. And it's been great. It has been great.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Lovett. I apologize if I wasn't clear about the questions. You can go ahead and unmute and ask your questions. Okay. Jeremie, I'm not picking on you. This question is for you. Jeremie, how does Actors Gang raise money to support the returned citizens?
Yeah, so this is obviously has been super important to the development of our program, and I think it gets into a little bit of what you're maybe asking about. Is it Kira? I didn't hear it before. Yeah. So in 2018, the way we were funding things was really through expansion, because that's the way the grants were set up, California Arts Council and innovative programming in the state of California, which basically meant we always had to start to build new programs in order to figure out a way to fund our programming. We didn't have a lot of infrastructure money coming in. So what we decided to do was halt programming, and really we laid out our design for the alumni network, knowing that we wanted to develop new teaching artists, and specifically teaching artists who were coming back from prison and going through the reentry process. At that time, there wasn't a ton of funding that we at least knew about. Now, the way we fund a lot of that is through the BSCC grant, which is the Board of State and Community Corrections here in California. And they've given us a huge chunk of money, because reentry is a really, for lack of a better way to put it, like a hot issue that they're really wanting. They see the value in it, the state does, and they're wanting to sink money. So the Roddick Foundation, Innovative Program, California Arts Council are some of our major grantors. But the thing I would like to say about it, I guess, more than anything, is when we first laid this out, there wasn't the funding available yet in the state of California. What we did was we really spent a lot of time advocating. So we would go up, Rich and myself and Major at the time, and we would speak to anybody who was like willing to listen to us up in the state of California. And once you take Richard up there or Major up there, and they start, sharing their experience of what it is to go back through reentry, how important it is to have some sort of financial base, which also makes makes coming to the theater at night more doable. And we're still working on that. A lot of our employment is part-time. There are very few full-time positions yet, but the goal is to work to get there. But that advocacy is what like helped free up those funds. So, you know, once it started to open up, it was like, oh, okay, we see why this is. It's because those voices are at the forefront and they're there making the case that it's like, this is where if you put your money as the state, you'll see a payoff.
Great. Eileen Ryan, this is a great question. I would love to answer it, but Johnny or Major, would you want to touch on this? The culture in prison seems to strikingly enforce permitted behavior. I think you spoke on this, Major. How to act, who to associate with, you too, Johnny. Boundaries of expressing emotion. How do you hold on to the very different human and emotional changes you experienced as a small group in the face of this immense pressure?
Yeah, that was, man, I seen that question. I was like, wow, it was like the turning point of my change. So I think it's almost like, you know, when I grew up, I started to pick up belief systems that were not normal. And it took time to pick up these behaviors of destruction and bad behaviors and those things in nature. I had to do the same thing. I had to peel off the layers just the opposite way. And certain programs will allow me to tear down those layers of that belief system or what I felt that was necessary for me to survive. But I also had to remember, what do I replace it with? Because it's my survival mechanism. Like if I need to go to it, I'm gonna grab it and I'm gonna survive with it. So once I removed it out of my life, I had to find, how do I replace that so I don't go to that particular box to survive? So as time went on, it started to find its way in a more positive way. But also what I realized too, there was other guys that were surrounded around me that were also taking the same journey. And you can kind of sense who those guys are. You know who's doing right, you know who's doing wrong, because I'm still a person that's in prison that knows what the community looks like. I know someone who wants to do right. I know someone who wants to do wrong. I know someone who's straddling the fence. You know, all through conversation. One thing about prison, the first thing you learn is to observe the yard without conversation and know what's going on. So because you pick up those things in prison, you start to realize who's on the right track. And then once you feel like you realize who those persons are, you just kind of come up to them, start a small conversation, and y'all start to build on what your journey looks like, where you're going, and then you start to hang around those guys. And next thing you know it, you're surrounding yourself around people who want the same thing that you want. And it's just really just kind of understanding what that looks like. And Johnny, Richard have picked up the same type of things to survive, because it's a survival skill, because guys will still test you out. They will still test the waters to see if you are serious about your change. And when they see it, they'll back up. You don't have to put no pressure on them. They'll back up and they'll see like, wow, Major, you know what? You got me thinking about changing, because they saw me in that light before. They saw me as them. So it wasn't hard for them to say, wow, I'm gonna let Major go ahead and walk his life and get to where he needs to be. So it varies with a lot of people. Sometimes people fall back and they got to climb back up out of that hole, you know, and it happens to all of us. So yeah, that was a good question. So thank you.
Johnny, did you want to add anything to that?
You pretty much covered it, but yeah, in prison it's like survival of the fittest. When you first come in, even though if you weren't racist or anything, you're segregated by race, and you start to develop that belief system that Major was talking about, that false belief system where it's just yourself, your own race now. That's all you care about. You develop hate. And so once I was able to make down to the lower level and surround myself with like-minded people, when I went to Avenal, the first thing that happened was a group of guys came and approached me and were like, hey, you guys need help with anything? And these were guys from different races. And I was blown away by it, because it never happened to me before, especially at the other prisons I was at. So when I saw that, I was like, what the hell is going on? And so they were like, look, this is a place where if you're trying to make it home, if you're trying to do good, this is where it's at. So you're going to have those positive people there. And that's what happened. Because once I got there, I was still straddling the fence, but I was being nudged in the right direction by these group of people. And so I took that opportunity. And once that group of Asians that I was hanging around with, they saw that how genuine my change was, they respected that. And so they backed up. They're like, hey, we respect what you do, continue doing good, and get home. At the end of the day, that's what it's about. So yeah, it's the culture. Like, once you surround yourself with like-minded people, the rest is history.
Thank you so much. Great answers.
Yeah. One new message. Nobody wants to come out and be heard, huh? Ask your question. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I apologize that I have to leave early. Okay. I want to share this because for me, it was getting home to my family. So on that, after the 7th day, and then towards the end of the year, we had a family presentation, and our families were invited to come in and to watch us perform. And my mom and dad came. And at the end of our presentation, we kind of came up with the Soul Train line, right? We all know what the Soul Train line is, the 2 lines, and we're coming down, dancing down the middle. And we have music playing, and we were in costume, we were in character, and we're dancing. My dad got up. He got up and he was dancing with us, and all the family members were dancing with us. And my mom, I noticed my mom sat there, and she was just crying in tears. And I couldn't wait to finish my dance so I can go to my mom and ask her, like, Mom, what's the matter, Mom? Look, everybody's having a good time, everybody's dancing. And I'll never forget my mom saying, "Es que, mijo, por la primera vez miré a mi hijo." And she says, "Son, you don't understand. For the first time, I'm seeing my son again." And that right there, I just held her. And everything I had done to her, I couldn't go back to that lifestyle in prison. I needed to go home now. I needed to come home. And so whatever I had to deal with, if it was consequences, whatever it was, it didn't matter to me no more. I was coming home. And now I get to dance with my mom. And so that was a turning point for me.
You know, I got a letter from my grandmother, I think probably about 2 years before I came home. And she wrote me and said, "Sweetie, I don't have much time left." And she just kept on saying that in the letter. And she wrote me faithfully for the whole 28 years. My grandma never missed a beat. And she just started talking about like leaving this world. And that was something that I held on as well. You know, that was one of my commitments, to staying on track, not falling back onto, you know, this lifestyle that I was believing in. And I came home and I surprised my mom and my grandmother. I didn't even tell them I was coming home. The day that I came home, I didn't tell them the day I was coming home. I know this sounds bad. I didn't tell them what day I was coming home. I told them I was coming home, but I didn't tell them what day I was coming home. Yeah, I know. And everybody said, "Major, why would you do that?" Anyway, I came home and I told my sister. That was the only person I told. I told my sister. I didn't tell my grandmother. I didn't tell my mom. And I walked in the house. I had these flowers. And when I walked inside the house, I looked to the right, and my grandmother was sitting right there on the couch. And she called me Maceo. That was my nickname. She called me Maceo when I was younger. That's a jazz singer. And so she looked at me. She says, "Maceo?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's me, Grandma." And then I went over there. And I gave her a big hug, and then she just wouldn't let me go. And then my mom was in the room watching her Price is Right, like as she's been doing for years. And I go into the room, and when I walk up and open the door, she's right there, and she sees me, and she just goes crazy. She's like, "Is that you, Major?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so I went in there and gave her a big hug, and I couldn't tell you how much that made me feel that I made it home, and they were able to see me, at this new person that was standing before them. But they still struggle because I left this image with them from the past. So I had to show them the walk. As I was, since I've been home, I had to show them the walk, because they kept on figuring like, "Oh, he's playing. He's trying to pull a wool over our eyes." But then as time went on, they realized that I had changed, and they realized that I was on the right path. So I'm just really grateful for the Actors Gang, because they allowed me to take my mom and my grandmother and my sister to the theater to watch some plays and things of that, and meet Jeremie and all the rest of the gang that I work with. So it's a blessing to be a part of this organization, and I couldn't tell you how proud I am, man, for the journeys of these guys who all took this step with me.
Well, there you have it. I think we're coming up on time. Scott, Melinda, Kurt, thank you so much. Ms. Lovett, thank you for jumping on. Lieutenant Campbell, we appreciate you. It means a lot to have been able to share this space with y'all. Hopefully we'll get to see you again. We're gonna close out the way we close out in our class, if you don't mind. So, and you can unmute to say it. I wanna hear voices. I wanna hear voices. I'm encouraging you. I'm encouraging you.
Okay.
We call it popcorn. So popcorn style, we're just gonna throw out words or phrases, anything you heard today that maybe touched you, moved you in any way, and just at random, just throw out words. And you can put them also in the chat if you'd like. So yeah, anybody can begin.
Unity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vulnerability.
Feeling emotions.
Emotions, yeah.
Grandma.
Power.
Finding
Put
myself.
down shield.
Support.
Put down shields.
Community.
Seeing who you are again.
Love.
Makeup. Dancing.
Growing.
Dancing. Home.
Real strength.
Growing.
Family.
Workshop.
Support.
Giving
Shine.
rides.
Putting on
Breath.
makeup.
Breath.
Change.
Proudness.
Removing my mask.
Yes.
I guess I'll stop it there. Excellent. I think that bowl is full of popcorn. Thank you so much. What beautiful contributions you've made. Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, John. Thank you, Maceo. Thank you, Dee. Thank you, Lieutenant Campbell. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you all for being with us. It's just a beautiful, beautiful arc to this story.